I thought I had a happy marriage until my wife's reunion no spouses policy turned out to be a cover story for her weekend affair, but the real betrayal was discovering she continued the relationship while crying and apologizing to save our marriage. I need some advice because my world just got turned upside down. My wife Jamie, 29F, and I, 32M, have been married for 5 years. We met through mutual friends when she was finishing her master's degree and I had just started working at an engineering firm. She moved in with me after 6 months of dating, and we got married 2 years later. Our marriage has been solid. We bought our first house 3 years ago in a quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes from downtown. Jamie works as a marketing coordinator for a local nonprofit, and I'm a project manager at a construction company. We've been talking seriously about having kids next year and even started looking at bigger houses in better school districts. Last month we painted the spare bedroom and started discussing whether it would make a good nursery. Jamie went to Roosevelt High School in our neighboring state. She graduated in 2012, which means her 10-year reunion was coming up this past fall. She mentioned it casually back in August, saying she got an invitation in the mail. At first, she seemed indifferent about going. She said most of her close friends from high school had moved away and she only kept in touch with maybe 3 or 4 people on social media. But as September approached, her attitude changed completely. She started talking about the reunion more often, mentioning specific people she was excited to see again. She showed me photos from her senior year yearbook, pointing out various classmates and telling me stories about them. There was Jessica, who had been her lab partner in chemistry and now worked as a nurse in Seattle. There was Marcus, who played guitar in the school band and apparently had a successful YouTube channel now. She seemed genuinely excited about reconnecting with these people. Then she suggested I should come with her. The reunion was scheduled for a Saturday night in October at a hotel about 4 hours away from our house. She said it would be fun for me to meet her old friends and we could make a weekend trip out of it. She even mentioned there were some nice hiking trails nearby that we could explore on Sunday before driving home. I was honestly looking forward to it. Jamie rarely talks about her high school years, so I was curious to meet the people who knew her before I did. We booked a hotel room for Friday and Saturday nights. I bought some new clothes for the reunion dinner and even researched those hiking trails she mentioned. The week before the reunion, Jamie seemed nervous. She spent extra time picking out her outfit and even got her hair done professionally on Friday morning before we were supposed to leave. But then, Thursday night while I was packing my bag, she came into the bedroom with a strange expression. She told me there had been a change of plans. According to her, the reunion organizers had sent out an email earlier that week saying spouses and partners could no longer attend due to space limitations at the venue. She seemed disappointed and apologetic, saying she understood if I didn't want her to go alone. I was confused because it seemed odd that they would change the rules so close to the event. I asked to see the email, but she said she had already deleted it. She explained that they had apparently sold more tickets than expected and the hotel couldn't accommodate everyone if people brought guests. When I pressed for more details, she became vague. She said something about fire codes and maximum occupancy limits. Then she quickly changed the subject, asking if I minded if she still went by herself. She promised to take lots of pictures and tell me all about it when she got back. I didn't want to seem controlling or suspicious, so I agreed. But something about her explanation didn't sit right with me. Why would they allow partners initially and then change their minds? And why was she being so evasive about the details? On Friday morning, she left for the reunion. She packed 2 large suitcases, which seemed excessive for a 2-day trip. When I commented on it, she laughed and said she couldn't decide what to wear and wanted options. She also packed more makeup and jewelry than she usually brings on our weekend trips together. Saturday came and went without much communication from her. She sent me a few text messages throughout the day saying she was having fun and catching up with old friends. The messages were brief and generic. Usually when she's away, she sends me photos of her food or funny things she sees. This time, nothing. Sunday afternoon, she called to let me know she was starting the drive home and would be back by evening. She sounded tired but said she had a great time. When I asked specific questions about who she saw and what they talked about, her answers were vague. She mentioned Jessica and Marcus but didn't provide the kind of detailed stories I expected from someone who had just spent a weekend reconnecting with old friends. She got home around 7 that evening. She seemed distant and went straight to the bathroom to shower. When she came out, I tried to ask more questions about the reunion, but she said she was exhausted and just wanted to watch TV and go to bed early. Monday morning, everything changed. I was at work when I got a text message from an unknown number. The message said, "Hey, this is Wilson from Jamie's high school. I got your number from the school directory. Can you call me when you get a chance? It's important." I called him during my lunch break. Wilson, 31M, explained that he was one of Jamie's classmates and had attended the reunion. He said he was confused because Jamie had told everyone at the reunion that I couldn't come because of work commitments. She had apparently said I was in the middle of a big project with a tight deadline and couldn't get away. But that wasn't the most important thing Wilson wanted to tell me. He said Jamie had spent the entire weekend with her ex-boyfriend from high school, a guy named Ryan. According to Wilson, they were practically inseparable. They sat together at dinner, danced together, and disappeared together for long periods during the social activities. Wilson said he felt compelled to contact me because his own marriage had ended 2 years ago when his wife had an affair. He said he wished someone had told him what was happening before it was too late. He mentioned that several other classmates had noticed Jamie and Ryan's behavior and found it inappropriate for a married woman. The most damaging detail Wilson shared was about Saturday afternoon. The reunion group had organized a tour of their old school building, which was being renovated. During the tour, Jamie and Ryan had wandered off from the group. Wilson said they were gone for over an hour, and when someone asked where they went, Ryan made a joke about showing Jamie some private areas of the school that weren't part of the official tour. Wilson also told me that contrary to what Jamie had said about space limitations, several other classmates had brought their spouses. He said the hotel had plenty of room and there were no restrictions on guests. After hanging up with Wilson, I sat in my car in the parking lot for 20 minutes trying to process what he had told me. When I got home that evening, I looked at Jamie differently. She was making dinner and chatting about her day at work as if nothing had happened. When I mentioned that her reunion sounded like fun, she gave the same vague responses as before. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Wilson's call and trying to reconcile his version of events with what Jamie had told me. The next morning, after she left for work, I decided to look through our phone records online. What I found made my stomach drop. Starting about 3 weeks before the reunion, there were multiple calls between Jamie's phone and a number I didn't recognize. The calls gradually became more frequent and longer. The longest one was a 52-minute call the Thursday night before she left for the reunion, right after she told me about the supposed space limitations. I called the number. A man answered, and when I asked who I was speaking to, he said Ryan. I hung up immediately. I spent the rest of that day going through our phone records more carefully. The calls between Jamie and Ryan had started in early September, right around the time her attitude about the reunion changed from indifferent to excited. There were also several text message exchanges, though I couldn't see the content. When Jamie came home from work, I confronted her. I told her about Wilson's call and what I had found in the phone records. At first, she denied everything. She said Wilson was probably mistaken or had misunderstood what he saw. She insisted that Ryan was just an old friend and they had caught up like she did with all her other classmates. When I pressed her about the phone calls, she admitted to talking with Ryan before the reunion but said it was only to coordinate who was attending and to plan group activities. She said the long conversations were group calls with other classmates. But when I asked her to explain why she had lied about the space limitations and about me having work commitments, she became defensive. She said she thought I might feel uncomfortable at a reunion where she would be talking about people and memories I didn't share. She claimed she was trying to spare me a boring evening. I didn't believe her explanations. The timeline didn't make sense, and her behavior was completely out of character. Jamie has never been secretive or deceptive in our entire relationship. She's always been direct and honest, sometimes to a fault. I told her I needed some time to think and that I would be staying at my brother's house for a few days. She started crying and begging me not to leave, but I packed a bag and left. It's been 3 days now, and I don't know what to believe. Jamie has been calling and texting constantly, apologizing and asking me to come home so we can talk. She insists that nothing physical happened between her and Ryan and that I'm misunderstanding the situation. But I can't stop thinking about all the lies. The fake story about space limitations. The lie about my work commitments. The secret phone calls for weeks before the reunion. The fact that she spent the entire weekend with her ex-boyfriend while telling me she was just catching up with various old friends. I don't know if I can trust her again. Even if nothing physical happened, the emotional betrayal and the elaborate deception feel like a complete violation of our marriage. I keep wondering what else she might be hiding or lying about. Has anyone dealt with something similar? How do you rebuild trust after something like this? Or am I overreacting to what might have been innocent reconnecting with an old friend? Update 1. Thank you to everyone who responded to my original post. The support and advice helped me think through this situation more clearly. Unfortunately, things have gotten much worse since I last wrote. After staying at my brother's house for a week, I agreed to meet Jamie at a coffee shop to talk. She had prepared what seemed like a rehearsed speech. She admitted that she had lied about the space limitations and about my work commitments, but she maintained that her reasons were innocent. She said she knew I would be bored at the reunion and thought it would be easier to go alone. She also admitted to reconnecting with Ryan before the reunion but insisted their conversations were purely platonic. According to her, they had talked about their current lives, their careers, and their memories of high school. She said she understood why the phone calls looked suspicious but promised that nothing romantic or physical had happened between them. She begged me to come home and said she would do anything to rebuild my trust. She offered to show me her phone, change her number, and even quit her job if necessary. She suggested couples counseling and said she would never contact Ryan again. I wanted to believe her. Despite everything that had happened, I still loved her and wasn't ready to throw away our marriage. We had built a life together, and the thought of starting over was overwhelming. So I agreed to come home on the condition that she be completely honest with me about everything that had happened at the reunion. For about 2 weeks, things seemed to improve. Jamie was more attentive than usual and made an effort to be transparent about her activities. She showed me her phone regularly and kept me updated throughout the day about where she was and what she was doing. We had several long conversations about our relationship and what we both wanted for our future. But then I received another call from Wilson. He said he had been hesitant to contact me again but felt I deserved to know what he had recently learned. According to Wilson, one of his friends who had also attended the reunion had been talking to Ryan's roommate. The roommate had apparently mentioned that Ryan had been bragging about his weekend with Jamie. Wilson's friend didn't want to get involved directly, but he had passed along some disturbing details through Wilson. According to the roommate, Ryan had said that Jamie was unhappy in her marriage and that they had spent Saturday night together in her hotel room. The roommate also mentioned that Ryan had shown him text messages from Jamie that were clearly romantic in nature. When Wilson told me this, I didn't know what to think. It directly contradicted everything Jamie had told me. If the roommate's account was accurate, then Jamie had been lying to me about the extent of her relationship with Ryan, both before and during the reunion. I decided I needed to hear this information directly from the source. I asked Wilson for the roommate's contact information, but he said his friend wasn't comfortable getting more involved. However, he did give me Ryan's last name and mentioned that Ryan worked at a dental office in the city where the reunion had taken place. That weekend, I drove the 4 hours to that city. I had looked up the dental office online and planned to wait in the parking lot until Ryan finished work. I knew this was probably a crazy thing to do, but I needed to know the truth. I waited in my car for about 2 hours before Ryan came out of the building. I recognized him from photos Jamie had shown me from her yearbook. He was taller than I expected and had the same confident demeanor I remembered from his high school pictures. I approached him in the parking lot and introduced myself as Jamie's husband. His reaction was immediate and telling. He looked genuinely surprised and uncomfortable. He asked how I had found him, and I explained about Wilson's call and what I had learned from the roommate. Ryan was quiet for a moment, then asked if we could talk somewhere private. We went to a nearby restaurant where he proceeded to tell me a version of events that was completely different from what Jamie had told me. According to Ryan, Jamie had contacted him first, back in early September. She had found him on social media and sent him a message saying she was excited about the reunion and hoped they could catch up. Their initial conversations had been innocent, but they quickly became more personal. Ryan said Jamie had told him that her marriage was struggling and that she felt disconnected from me. She had apparently described our relationship as more like roommates than husband and wife. She said she had been thinking about her high school years a lot lately and wondering what her life would have been like if she had made different choices. The phone calls had become increasingly frequent and intimate. Ryan admitted that they had talked about their past relationship and wondered aloud whether they would have stayed together if circumstances had been different. By the time of the reunion, Ryan said he believed Jamie was seriously considering leaving her marriage. At the reunion, according to Ryan, Jamie had told everyone that I couldn't attend because I was working. She spent the entire weekend by his side and made it clear to everyone that they were together. They had left the group activities multiple times to be alone, and yes, they had spent Saturday night in her hotel room. Ryan said he had assumed based on their conversations that Jamie and I were separated or at least heading toward divorce. He was shocked to learn that she had been lying to me about the nature of their relationship and that I had believed we were working on our marriage. When I asked Ryan directly whether they had been physically intimate, he nodded and said they had been together both Friday and Saturday nights. He said Jamie had been the one who initiated everything and had repeatedly told him that her marriage was effectively over. I sat in that restaurant for another hour while Ryan answered my questions. He seemed genuinely remorseful when he realized the full extent of Jamie's deception. He said he never would have gotten involved if he had known she was lying to both of us. The drive home was the longest 4 hours of my life. I kept thinking about how convincing Jamie had been when she looked me in the eye and swore that nothing physical had happened. I thought about the 2 weeks we had spent working on our marriage while she knew she had been with another man. When I got home, Jamie was in the kitchen making dinner. She greeted me normally and asked about my day. I told her I had driven to see Ryan and knew the truth about what had happened at the reunion. Her reaction was immediate and dramatic. She started crying and saying that Ryan was lying, that he was trying to ruin her marriage out of jealousy or spite. She insisted that while they may have spent time together at the reunion, nothing physical had happened between them. But when I told her the specific details that Ryan had shared, including things he couldn't have known unless he had been in her hotel room, her story began to change. She admitted that they had kissed but said it was just once and that she had stopped it from going further. Then I told her about the text messages Ryan had mentioned. Her face went white, and she asked how I could believe Ryan over her. I pointed out that Ryan had no reason to lie to me, while she had already been caught in multiple lies. That night, Jamie finally admitted to having sex with Ryan, but she maintained that it had only happened once and that she regretted it immediately. She said she had been confused and nostalgic but that it meant nothing. She begged me to forgive her and said she would do anything to save our marriage. But I couldn't listen to any more lies or partial truths. I told her I was filing for divorce and that I would be staying at my brother's house permanently. She broke down completely and said she couldn't live without me, but I had already made my decision. I moved out the next day. The process of untangling our shared life has been complicated and painful, but I know I made the right choice. I could never trust her again, and I refused to spend the rest of my life wondering what else she might be hiding from me. The divorce papers are being drawn up now. Jamie has been calling and texting constantly, alternating between apologies and anger. Yesterday she accused me of ruining our marriage by not trusting her. The irony of that statement would be funny if it weren't so pathetic. I'm focusing on moving forward now. It's been difficult, but I'm starting to see that this situation revealed who Jamie really was underneath the person I thought I had married. I deserve better than someone who can look me in the eye and lie so convincingly about something so important. Update 2. I wanted to provide another update because there have been some significant developments in my situation. The divorce process has been moving forward, and I thought everything was settled until I received some unexpected information last week. The divorce proceedings had been relatively straightforward. Jamie initially tried to contest some of the terms, particularly regarding the division of our house and savings, but her lawyer advised her that her infidelity would likely work against her if we went to court. Eventually, she agreed to a settlement that was fair to both of us. During this time, Jamie made several attempts to contact me directly, despite my request that all communication go through our lawyers. She sent long emails apologizing and asking for another chance. She showed up at my brother's house twice, once with flowers and once with a letter she wanted me to read. Both times, my brother turned her away before I even knew she was there. About a month ago, the calls and emails stopped. I assumed she had finally accepted that our marriage was over and was moving on with her life. The divorce was scheduled to be finalized next week, and I was looking forward to officially closing this chapter. Then last Tuesday, I got a call from Wilson again. He sounded uncomfortable and said he wasn't sure whether he should be contacting me, but he had learned something that he thought I should know before the divorce was final. According to Wilson, Ryan had been in contact with several of their mutual high school friends over the past few months. Ryan had apparently been telling people that his relationship with Jamie hadn't ended after the reunion. In fact, he claimed they had been seeing each other regularly since then. Wilson said that one of their classmates, Jennifer, lived in our city and had seen Jamie and Ryan together at a restaurant about 3 weeks ago. Jennifer had recognized Jamie from the reunion photos that people had posted on social media. When Jennifer told Wilson about this, he felt obligated to let me know. At first, I didn't want to believe it. The timeline didn't make sense to me. Jamie had been trying so hard to reconcile our marriage after I discovered her affair. Why would she continue seeing Ryan while begging me to take her back? But the more I thought about it, the more it explained some things I had noticed. During the brief period when I had moved back home, Jamie had been unusually protective of her phone. She had also started working late more frequently, claiming her nonprofit was in the middle of a big fundraising campaign. There were also a few evenings when she said she was going out with her co-worker friends, but when I had suggested joining them, she said they preferred to keep their girls' nights private. At the time, I had accepted her explanations because I was trying to trust her again. I decided I needed to verify Jennifer's account before jumping to conclusions. I asked Wilson for Jennifer's contact information, and she agreed to meet with me the following day. Jennifer confirmed that she had seen Jamie and Ryan together at an upscale Italian restaurant downtown. She said they were sitting in a corner booth and appeared to be having an intimate conversation. Jennifer had watched them for several minutes and said their body language was clearly romantic. They were holding hands across the table and leaning in close to each other. Jennifer said she had debated whether to approach them but ultimately decided against it since she didn't know the full situation. However, when Wilson mentioned that I was going through a divorce because of Jamie's affair at the reunion, Jennifer felt she should share what she had witnessed. The restaurant Jennifer mentioned was only about 10 minutes from Jamie's workplace. When I thought back to the timeline, I realized that the evening Jennifer saw them was one of the nights Jamie had claimed to be working late on her fundraising campaign. Armed with this information, I confronted Jamie one last time. I called her and told her what Jennifer had seen. Jamie's initial response was to deny everything, but when I pressed her for details about her whereabouts that evening, her story began to fall apart. Eventually, she admitted that she had been in contact with Ryan since the reunion, but she claimed it was only because he had been persistently contacting her and she was trying to convince him to leave her alone. She said the dinner Jennifer witnessed was actually her telling Ryan that their relationship had to end permanently so she could focus on saving her marriage. I didn't believe her explanation. The timeline and circumstances made it clear that she had been maintaining a relationship with Ryan while simultaneously trying to reconcile with me. It was another layer of deception on top of everything she had already put me through. When I told her that this revelation had confirmed my decision to proceed with the divorce, Jamie's demeanor changed completely. Instead of crying and apologizing as she had done before, she became angry and defensive. She accused me of hiring private investigators to spy on her and said I was obsessed with punishing her for one mistake. She said that even if she had been seeing Ryan, it was only because I had abandoned our marriage and refused to forgive her. She claimed that I had driven her back to him by being cold and unforgiving when she was trying to make amends. The conversation ended with her hanging up on me. Within an hour, I received a text message from Ryan. He said that Jamie had told him about our conversation and that he wanted to clarify a few things. Ryan asked if we could meet again, and despite my reluctance to get further involved in their drama, I agreed. When we met the next day, Ryan told me a very different story than the one Jamie had given me. According to Ryan, Jamie had contacted him about 2 weeks after I had initially moved out to my brother's house. She had told him that our marriage was definitely over and that she was just waiting for the legal process to be completed. She said she regretted not being honest with me from the beginning and that she should have left me before getting involved with him. Ryan said they had been seeing each other regularly since then, usually for dinner or coffee after Jamie finished work. She had told him that I was being vindictive about the divorce and trying to take everything from her out of spite. She painted herself as the victim of an unreasonable and controlling husband. Ryan admitted that he had believed Jamie's version of events because it aligned with what she had told him during their phone calls before the reunion. He said he was beginning to realize that Jamie had a pattern of manipulating the truth to suit her needs. The most disturbing thing Ryan told me was that Jamie had been talking about their future together. She had suggested that they could move in together once the divorce was final and had even mentioned the possibility of them getting married eventually. Ryan said he had been uncomfortable with how quickly she was planning their relationship while still legally married to me. When I got home that evening, I called my lawyer and told him about these latest developments. He said that while Jamie's continued relationship with Ryan wouldn't change the terms of our divorce, it did provide additional evidence of her pattern of deception if needed. The divorce was finalized yesterday. I felt a mixture of relief and sadness as I signed the final papers. Relief that this chapter of my life was officially over, and sadness for the years we had shared before everything fell apart. Jamie sent me one final email after the divorce was official. She said she hoped I would be happy and that she was sorry for the pain she had caused. She didn't mention Ryan or their relationship, but she did say she was moving to a different city for a fresh start. I don't know if that's true or if it's just another story she's telling to manage the situation. At this point, it doesn't matter to me either way. I'm focused on rebuilding my life and learning from this experience. The hardest part has been accepting that the person I was married to was capable of such sustained deception. It wasn't just the affair at the reunion or even the continued relationship with Ryan afterward. It was the ease with which she could look me in the eye and lie about things both big and small. I'm working on trusting my instincts again and not dismissing red flags just because I want to believe the best in people. This experience has been painful, but it's also taught me valuable lessons about the importance of honesty and transparency in relationships. Update 3. This will be my final update on this situation. I've been hesitant to write it because I wasn't sure I wanted to revisit everything again, but some recent events have provided what feels like closure, and I think it might be helpful for others who have gone through similar experiences. The past few months since the divorce was finalized have been a period of adjustment and healing for me. I've been staying with my brother and his family, which has been both helpful and challenging. Having their support has been invaluable, but living in someone else's space as a 32-year-old man has made me eager to establish my independence again. I found a one-bedroom apartment about 15 minutes from my work. It's smaller than the house Jamie and I shared, but it's mine. The process of furnishing it from scratch has actually been therapeutic in a way. Every piece of furniture and every item I've bought represents a choice I made for myself, without having to consider someone else's preferences or compromise. Work has been a good distraction. My boss was understanding about the situation and even gave me some additional responsibilities that required travel, which helped keep my mind occupied during the worst parts of the divorce process. I've been focusing on building my skills and advancing my career, something I had put on the back burner during my marriage. I hadn't heard from Jamie since her email after the divorce was finalized. I assumed she had moved on with her life, presumably with Ryan, and I was content to leave it that way. But about 6 weeks ago, I started receiving calls from a number I didn't recognize. The first few times, I didn't answer because I didn't want to risk it being Jamie trying to contact me through a different phone. But when the calls persisted, I finally answered one. It was Ryan. He sounded different than he had during our previous conversations, more subdued and somewhat defeated. He said he needed to talk to me about Jamie and that it was important. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him. We met at the same restaurant where we had talked before. Ryan looked like he hadn't been sleeping well. He started by apologizing for contacting me again and said he wouldn't have done it unless he felt it was necessary. Ryan told me that his relationship with Jamie had ended badly about a month earlier. According to him, the problems had started almost immediately after my divorce was finalized. Jamie had expected him to immediately move in with her and had begun making plans for their future without consulting him. Ryan said that Jamie had been pressuring him to propose to her and had become angry when he suggested they should take things slowly. She had accused him of leading her on and wasting her time. She had also become increasingly possessive and jealous, monitoring his social media activity and questioning him about his interactions with other women. But the most significant issue, according to Ryan, was Jamie's dishonesty. He said he had begun to notice inconsistencies in the things she told him, small lies about her daily activities and interactions with other people. When he confronted her about these discrepancies, she would become defensive and accuse him of not trusting her. The final straw had come when Ryan discovered that Jamie had been telling her coworkers and friends a completely fabricated story about our divorce. She had apparently claimed that I had been abusive and controlling throughout our marriage and that she had been afraid to leave me. She said that I had threatened her during the divorce proceedings and that she had to get a restraining order against me. None of this was true, of course. Our divorce had been handled entirely through lawyers, and while it had been emotionally difficult, there had been no threats or abuse from either side. When Ryan heard these stories from one of Jamie's coworkers who happened to know a mutual friend of his, he realized that Jamie had been lying to everyone about the circumstances of our marriage and divorce. Ryan said he had confronted Jamie about these lies, and she had initially denied telling anyone those stories. When he pressed her with specific details, she claimed that she had only been exaggerating to get sympathy from her friends and that she hadn't meant for the stories to be taken seriously. But Ryan said this incident had made him question everything else Jamie had told him about our relationship and about me. He began to wonder if her version of events leading up to the reunion and during our marriage had been as distorted as her recent stories. Ryan told me that he had ended their relationship the day after learning about her lies. Jamie had not taken it well. She had shown up at his apartment multiple times, called him repeatedly, and even contacted his employer claiming that he owed her money and was refusing to pay it back. Ryan said he was telling me all of this because he wanted me to know that if Jamie tried to contact me or cause problems for me in the future, it wasn't because they were still together. He also said he wanted to apologize for his role in the destruction of my marriage, even though he now understood that Jamie had been lying to both of us from the beginning. After Ryan left, I sat in my car for a while processing what he had told me. I wasn't surprised by his description of Jamie's behavior. The manipulation, the lies, and the refusal to take responsibility for her actions were all consistent with what I had experienced during our marriage and divorce. But I was disturbed by the false stories she had been telling about me. The idea that she was portraying me as abusive to gain sympathy from others was both hurtful and potentially damaging to my reputation. I made a mental note to be more careful about my online presence and to keep documentation of our divorce proceedings in case I ever needed to defend myself against her lies. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Wilson. He said he had heard through their high school network that Jamie and Ryan had broken up and that Jamie had been reaching out to various classmates looking for sympathy and support. According to Wilson, she had been telling people that both Ryan and I had treated her badly and that she was struggling to recover from the emotional abuse she had endured. Wilson said he wanted me to know what Jamie was saying in case it affected me in any way. He also mentioned that several of their classmates who knew the real story were not believing Jamie's version of events and were beginning to see a pattern in her behavior. I thanked Wilson for the information but told him that I didn't want to get involved in any high school drama or he said she said situations. I had moved on with my life and didn't want to be drawn back into Jamie's chaos. Last week, I received a letter in the mail from Jamie. It was handwritten and several pages long. In it, she apologized for her behavior during our marriage and divorce. She admitted that she had made mistakes and said she understood why I couldn't forgive her. But then the letter took a strange turn. Jamie wrote that she had been going through a difficult time emotionally and had been making poor decisions in her relationships with both me and Ryan. She said she was getting help for her problems and hoped that someday we could be friends again. The letter ended with her asking if I would be willing to meet with her for coffee to discuss our relationship and to give her a chance to apologize in person. She said she wasn't asking for reconciliation but just wanted closure and the opportunity to make amends. I read the letter twice and then threw it away. I had no interest in meeting with Jamie or in providing her with closure. I had already gotten the closure I needed through the divorce process and by learning the truth about her continued deception. The experience with Jamie taught me that some people are fundamentally dishonest and manipulative, and that no amount of love or commitment can change that. I spent years of my life with someone who was capable of looking me in the eye and lying about things that mattered deeply to our relationship. I'm in a much better place now than I was a year ago. I have my own apartment, I'm advancing in my career, and I've started dating again. The relationships I'm building now are based on honesty and mutual respect, qualities that I now understand are non-negotiable for me. I don't regret the years I spent with Jamie because they taught me valuable lessons about myself and about what I want in a partner. But I'm grateful that I discovered her true character before we had children together or became even more financially intertwined. For anyone going through a similar situation, my advice is to trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't ignore red flags just because you want to believe the best in someone. And once trust is broken through deception and betrayal, it's nearly impossible to rebuild it with someone who continues to lie and manipulate. I'm looking forward to the future now instead of dwelling on the past. This chapter of my life is finally closed, and I'm ready to write the next one on my own terms. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My successful lawyer sister called my fiancé a loser to our family, so I skipped her lavish wedding and cut contact. I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my older sister Melanie, 32F. Growing up in a small Midwest town, our family dynamics were far from ideal. Our parents, both successful professionals, placed an enormous emphasis on academic achievement and social status. From a young age, it was clear that Melanie was the golden child who could do no wrong in their eyes. Melanie excelled in everything she touched, straight A's, captain of the debate team, class president, you name it. She was the perfect daughter our parents had always dreamed of. I, on the other hand, struggled academically and socially. What I didn't know then was that I had undiagnosed ADHD, which made traditional learning environments challenging for me. Our parents' constant comparisons between us only exacerbated the situation. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became a common refrain in our household. Family dinners often turned into showcases of Melanie's latest accomplishments, while my struggles were either ignored or criticized. This dynamic continued throughout our childhood and teenage years, driving a wedge between us that never truly healed. As we entered adulthood, the gap between us only seemed to widen. Melanie went off to an Ivy League college on a full scholarship, then straight to law school. She landed a job at a prestigious firm in the city and quickly climbed the corporate ladder. Meanwhile, I struggled to find my footing. I bounced between community college and various entry-level jobs, never quite finding my place. It wasn't until my mid-20s that I discovered my passion for graphic design. I went back to school, got my degree, and started building a career I genuinely enjoyed. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was on the right path. Our parents were supportive, but their pride in my accomplishments always seemed to pale in comparison to their adoration of Melanie's success. Despite our differences, I thought Melanie and I had reached a place of mutual respect as adults. We weren't close, but we were cordial at family gatherings and would occasionally grab coffee when she was in town. I even confided in her about my struggles with self-esteem and imposter syndrome, hoping to bridge the gap between us. She seemed sympathetic, and for a while, I thought we were making progress. 3 years ago, I met Mark, 30M, at a local art fair where I was showcasing some of my work. He's a high school art teacher with a passion for inspiring young minds. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love of creativity and education. Mark is everything I could have hoped for in a partner, kind, supportive, and loves me unconditionally. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen and appreciated for who I am. Our relationship progressed quickly, and 6 months ago, Mark proposed during a weekend getaway to a quaint bed and breakfast. It was simple, intimate, and perfect. We started planning our wedding for next spring, excited to start our life together. I was over the moon and couldn't wait to share the news with my family. My parents seemed happy for me, if a bit reserved. Melanie, however, was oddly quiet when I told her. She congratulated me but quickly changed the subject. I brushed it off at the time, assuming she was just busy with work. Last month, my world came crashing down when I found out the real reason behind Melanie's lukewarm response. Our cousin Amy, 26F, who has always been more like a sister to me than Melanie ever was, called me in tears. She couldn't keep it to herself any longer. Melanie had been bad-mouthing Mark to our family behind my back for months. According to Amy, Melanie had been telling anyone who would listen that Mark was a loser who would never amount to anything because he was just a high school teacher. She said I was settling and that I could do so much better. She even went as far as to suggest that Mark was only with me for financial stability, implying that as a teacher, he couldn't possibly support a family on his own. I was furious and heartbroken. How could Melanie, who knew about my struggles with self-worth, try to undermine the one relationship that had finally made me feel valued? And how dare she judge Mark's worth based solely on his career choice? I confronted Melanie about it, hoping there had been some misunderstanding. To my shock, she didn't even try to deny it. She said she was just looking out for me and didn't want me to end up with someone beneath our family status. She argued that as my older sister, it was her duty to protect me from making a huge mistake. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her she had no right to judge my relationship or spread lies about Mark. I reminded her that teaching is a noble profession and that Mark's impact on his students' lives was worth far more than any high-powered salary. Things escalated quickly. I told Melanie she was a snobby, elitist bitch who clearly hadn't outgrown her need to feel superior to me. I accused her of being jealous that I had found happiness with someone who valued me for who I am, not what I could do for their social status. Melanie fired back, calling me ungrateful and naive. She said I was throwing away my potential by marrying a nobody and that I would regret it when I was struggling to make ends meet in a few years. After our blowout, I went low contact with Melanie. I only spoke to her when absolutely necessary for family events, keeping our interactions brief and cold. Our parents tried to intervene, but I shut down any attempts to discuss the situation. I was done being the family peacekeeper at the expense of my own happiness. Last week, Melanie dropped a bombshell. She called to announce her engagement to her boyfriend of 2 years, Tyler, 34M. Tyler comes from a wealthy family and is a partner at a prestigious law firm, exactly the type of man our parents always envisioned for her. Melanie was over the moon, gushing about her massive diamond ring and plans for a lavish wedding. Then came the kicker. Melanie said she wanted me to be her maid of honor. She acted as if nothing had happened between us, talking about dress fittings and bachelorette party plans. I was stunned by her audacity. I took a deep breath and told her congratulations, but that I would not be attending her wedding, let alone be her maid of honor. Melanie was shocked. She asked why, as if she genuinely couldn't understand my reasoning. I reminded her of how she's treated Mark and said I refused to celebrate her marriage when she's shown such disrespect to mine. Melanie started crying, accusing me of being petty and holding a grudge. She insisted she was just trying to look out for me as my big sister and that I was blowing things out of proportion. I stood my ground, telling her I didn't need or want her looking out for me anymore. I said her actions had shown me exactly what she thought of me and my choices, and I wasn't interested in pretending everything was fine for the sake of appearances. Now my parents are furious with me for ruining Melanie's special time. They've been calling nonstop, leaving voicemails about family obligation and the importance of forgiveness. They say I need to be the bigger person and let it go for the sake of family harmony. My mom even had the nerve to suggest that Mark was turning me against my family, as if I couldn't possibly have formed my own opinion on the matter. I'm standing firm in my decision, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't taking a toll on me. Mark has been incredibly supportive throughout this whole ordeal. He says he'll back whatever decision I make, but I can tell he's hurt by how my family has treated him. He's suggested that maybe we should elope and avoid the family drama altogether, but part of me feels like that would be letting Melanie win. Am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after how she's behaved? Should I just suck it up and go for the sake of keeping the peace? I've spent so much of my life trying to measure up to Melanie and make my family proud. Part of me feels guilty for causing drama, but another part feels like I need to take a stand. I could really use some outside perspective on this mess. Update 1. It's been about a month since my last post, and to say things have been chaotic would be an understatement. First, I want to thank everyone for their supportive comments and advice. Your words have been a source of strength during this difficult time. After my initial refusal to attend Melanie's wedding, the situation with my family escalated rapidly. My parents, who had always been masters of emotional manipulation, ramped up their guilt-tripping efforts to unprecedented levels. They called and texted constantly, cycling between anger, disappointment, and syrupy sweet pleas for family unity. Things came to a head about 2 weeks ago when my parents showed up unannounced at my apartment on a Wednesday evening. I had just gotten home from work and was in the middle of making dinner when the doorbell rang. Opening the door to find my mom and dad standing there felt like a punch to the gut. They pushed their way inside, my mom already in tears and my dad wearing his stern "we need to talk" face. For the next hour, they tag-teamed me with every guilt trip in their arsenal. They brought up sacrifices they'd made for me growing up, times they'd supported me through tough periods, and how this selfish decision was breaking their hearts. I stood my ground and calmly explained once again how hurtful Melanie's actions were and that I couldn't in good conscience celebrate her marriage when she's shown such disrespect to mine. I told them that true family support goes both ways, and that I didn't feel supported by any of them right now. My parents weren't having it. They accused me of being selfish and said I was tearing the family apart over petty high school drama. My dad even had the audacity to suggest that maybe Melanie was right about Mark being a bad influence on me, since I'd never behaved this way before. That's when things took an unexpected turn. My mom, clearly frustrated that her tears weren't working, dropped a bombshell. She threatened to withdraw financial support for my own wedding if I didn't agree to be in Melanie's. I was shocked. I hadn't even asked them to contribute anything to my wedding. Mark and I had been planning to pay for everything ourselves. The threat felt like a slap in the face, but it also opened my eyes to how they've always viewed their parental role, not as unconditional support, but as a transaction. It was a painful realization, but in a way, it made my decision easier. I told them that if that's how they felt, they didn't need to contribute or even attend my wedding at all. I said I'd rather have a small ceremony surrounded by people who genuinely support us than a big event filled with fake smiles and hidden resentment. My mom burst into tears, again, and my dad started yelling about how ungrateful I was. He brought up every mistake I'd ever made, every time I'd disappointed them growing up. It was like all the pent-up resentment from years of favoring Melanie came pouring out. I asked them to leave, saying I needed space from all of them for a while. After they left, I broke down crying. All the stress and emotion I'd been holding back came flooding out. Mark came home from work to find me sobbing on the couch. He was amazing. He just held me and assured me that we'd get through this together. We spent that night talking through our options and decided to look into scaling back our wedding plans so we can pay for everything ourselves. A few days later, I got an unexpected call from my Aunt Susan, 54F, my mom's sister. She said she'd heard what happened from my parents and wanted to offer her support. To my surprise, she told me she was proud of me for standing up for myself and Mark. Aunt Susan revealed that she and several other family members have long been uncomfortable with how my parents and Melanie treat me, but never knew how to bring it up. She apologized for not speaking up sooner and offered to help with our wedding in any way she could, even offering to contribute financially if we needed it. I was touched by Aunt Susan's support and it made me realize I'm not as alone in this as I thought. It's been comforting to know that not everyone in the family agrees with my parents and Melanie's behavior. Mark and I are now considering having a smaller, more intimate wedding surrounded by the people who truly love and support us. We've been looking at some beautiful outdoor venues that would be perfect for a low-key celebration. Melanie hasn't reached out since our last conversation, but I heard through Amy that she's furious I'm stealing attention from her engagement. Apparently, she's been telling family members that I'm just jealous of her success and taking it out on her by ruining her wedding plans. Honestly, I'm past the point of caring what she thinks. My parents have switched tactics again. Now they're sending daily emails about how worried they are about me and how they just want their real daughter back. They've even reached out to some of my friends, trying to get them to talk sense into me. It feels invasive and manipulative. For now, I'm focusing on planning my wedding to the man I love and strengthening relationships with the family members who have shown they genuinely care about my happiness. I've started seeing a therapist to work through some of the deep-seated family issues this situation has brought to the surface. It's been a difficult month, full of emotional highs and lows. But underneath all the stress and sadness, I feel a sense of empowerment. For the first time in my life, I'm standing up for myself and what I believe in. It's terrifying, but also liberating. I'm still not sure what the future holds for my relationship with my parents and Melanie. Part of me hopes that with time and distance, they'll come to understand my perspective. But I'm also preparing myself for the possibility that this rift may be permanent. Either way, I'm committed to moving forward and creating a life filled with love, respect, and genuine support, even if that means redefining what family means to me. Update 2. It's been about 3 months since my last update, and the situation with my family has continued to evolve in ways I never expected. I wanted to share some recent developments and get some advice on how to handle the latest drama. First, some good news. Mark and I have finalized our wedding plans. We've decided on a beautiful, intimate ceremony at a local botanical garden with just 50 of our closest friends and family. The venue is perfect for us, filled with vibrant flowers and greenery. It reflects our love of nature and art. We're planning a laid-back celebration with a focus on good food, great music, and the people we love most. Aunt Susan has been an incredible help with the planning process. She's gone above and beyond, using her connections to help us find amazing vendors at discounted rates. She even insisted on paying for my wedding dress as a gift. I found a gorgeous, bohemian-style gown that makes me feel like a woodland fairy princess. It's nothing like the elaborate ball gown Melanie always said I should wear, but it's perfect for me. Now for the not-so-good news. Melanie's wedding is coming up in a few weeks, and the pressure for my family to attend has intensified to an almost unbearable degree. My parents have switched tactics from guilt-tripping to love-bombing. They've been sending gifts, offering to pay for a lavish vacation for Mark and me, and constantly talking about how much they miss me. Last week, a huge bouquet of my favorite flowers arrived at my office with a card from my mom, reminiscing about a happy memory from my childhood. It was a bittersweet moment. Part of me was touched by the gesture, while another part felt manipulated. I've remained firm in my decision not to attend Melanie's wedding, but I'll admit the constant barrage of emotions from my family has been wearing me down. There are moments when I find myself second-guessing my decision, wondering if I'm being too harsh. Part of me misses the idea of a close-knit family, even if that wasn't really our reality. The latest drama started when Melanie sent out her official wedding invitations. Despite my clear stance on not attending, she still sent me an invitation, along with a handwritten note. The invitation itself was ostentatious, dripping with gold foil and promising an extravagant affair at a luxury resort. The note, however, was what really got under my skin. In it, Melanie apologized for her poor choice of words about Mark, but said she still believes I'm making a mistake. She wrote that she loves me and wants me by her side on her big day, and that she'd be willing to overlook my stubbornness if I agreed to be her maid of honor. I was furious. Her apology felt insincere and condescending. The fact that she referred to my valid feelings as stubbornness just proved she hasn't really changed or understood why I was hurt in the first place. It felt like she was more concerned with having the perfect wedding photos than actually repairing our relationship. I decided not to respond to the invitation or the note. I thought my silence would speak volumes. However, Melanie apparently took my silence as an agreement because she started telling family members that I had changed my mind and would be in the wedding. When I found out about this from Aunt Susan, I was livid. I immediately called Melanie and told her in no uncertain terms that I would not be attending her wedding, let alone be in it. I told her that her manipulative behavior and fake apology only reinforced my decision to keep my distance. Melanie exploded. She accused me of trying to ruin her wedding and said I was just jealous because her fiancé is more successful than Mark. She brought up old childhood grievances, accusing me of always trying to steal her spotlight. I hung up on her mid-rant, my hands shaking with anger and hurt. Now my phone is blowing up with messages from family members. Some are begging me to reconsider for the sake of family unity. Others are calling me selfish and dramatic. My cousin Amy sent a supportive text, but even she gently suggested that maybe I should attend the wedding to be the bigger person. My parents left a voicemail saying they're deeply disappointed in my behavior and that I'm breaking their hearts. They said they raised me better than this and that they don't understand why I'm intent on destroying our family. I'm standing firm in my decision, but I'll admit all this drama is taking a toll on me. I've been having trouble sleeping and my appetite has disappeared. Mark has been incredibly supportive, but I can see it's affecting him too. He's suggested we take a short trip to get away from all the family stress and focus on us. I'm considering taking him up on that offer, maybe even turning off my phone for a few days. But part of me worries that we'll just make things worse when we get back. I'm also concerned about the potential backlash at work. My boss is friends with my parents and I'm worried this family drama might somehow affect my job. Am I handling this situation right? Should I just give in and go to the wedding to keep the peace? Or should I continue to hold my ground? Any advice on how to deal with the constant barrage of guilt and manipulation would be greatly appreciated. Update 3. It's been about 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some final thoughts on how everything played out. Mark and I did end up taking the trip he suggested. We spent a week at a lovely beach resort with our phones turned off. It was exactly what we needed to decompress and reconnect away from all the family drama. We spent our days lounging on the beach, trying local restaurants, and even took a couples painting class. It reminded me why I fell in love with Mark in the first place and reinforced my decision to prioritize our relationship over family expectations. When we returned, I had dozens of missed calls and messages from family members about Melanie's wedding. I decided to send out a mass email to everyone explaining my position one last time. I detailed Melanie's hurtful actions, her insincere apology, and my reasons for not attending the wedding. I made it clear that this was my final word on the matter and asked them to respect my decision. The response was mixed. Some family members finally seemed to understand my perspective, while others doubled down on their criticism. My parents sent a long, emotional email essentially saying I was dead to them if I didn't attend the wedding. It was painful to read, but it also solidified my resolve. Melanie's wedding came and went without me there. From what I heard through Amy, it was a lavish affair with hundreds of guests. Apparently, Melanie spent most of the reception badmouthing me to anyone who would listen, painting herself as the victim of her unreasonable little sister. It hurt to hear, but it also confirmed that I'd made the right choice in not attending. In the months since, I've maintained very low contact with my immediate family. It's been difficult, especially during holidays and family events, but also freeing in many ways. I've been working on building stronger relationships with the family members who have supported me, like Aunt Susan. Mark and I got married last month in the intimate ceremony we planned. It was a beautiful day filled with love and genuine joy. Aunt Susan walked me down the aisle, which felt incredibly special. We were surrounded by friends and family who truly support us, and the love in the air was palpable. To my surprise, my parents reached out the day before our wedding. They said they realized they had handled things badly and wanted to make amends. While I appreciated the gesture, I told them I wasn't ready to let them back into my life just yet. I said maybe we could start with small steps in the future, but for now, I needed to focus on my new life with Mark. Melanie hasn't reached out at all, which is probably for the best. I've heard through Amy that she and Tyler are expecting their first child. While part of me feels a twinge of sadness at the thought of not knowing my future niece or nephew, I know maintaining distance is the healthiest choice for now. Looking back, I don't regret my decision to stand up for myself and Mark. It's been a difficult journey, but I've learned a lot about setting boundaries and prioritizing my own happiness. Mark and I are stronger than ever, and we're excited to start this new chapter of our lives together. To anyone dealing with toxic family dynamics, I want to say, it's okay to prioritize your own well-being. It's not easy, but sometimes creating distance is the kindest thing you can do for yourself. Surround yourself with people who truly support and value you. Family is what you make it. Thank you to everyone who has offered support and advice throughout this journey. Your kindness and understanding have meant more than you know.